Howdy folks, Matty with Gulf Coast Fit. I'm ready to run through a doozy with you this morning. I'm ramped up, revved up, and excited to stay accountable with you to hit a posterior chain workout. This is a hip hinge movement pattern dominant workout, not that other muscle groups aren't involved, but the posterior chain, especially the hamstrings and the glutes, are the focal points of this micro session. And what we're going to do is run through a 15 set posterior chain micro session entailing 5 different exercises. Once again, 5 different exercises, but revolving around the hip hinge movement pattern. So I've got various toys with me. So you don't have to have all of these toys and this equipment that I have, but it does help to have your stability ball with you. I know you've got that. I've got some kettlebells with me. I know you've got kettlebells or dumbbells. I'm personally going to be using a barbell. You don't have to have a barbell, but if you've got one, it's good to use. I will also be using my plyo box back here, so anything you can do a step up on, solid chair, bench, step, ledge, what have you, then I think that's all we need here. So the 5 exercises that we are going to be running through, we're going to start with the step up on my box. So I'm going to show you how to make the step ups more of a posterior chain hip hinge movement pattern dominant type of step up variation. And then we're going to move into the Romanian deadlifts. I'll be using the kettlebells on this first round. That'll be our second exercise. And then we're going to move into the stability ball leg curls. So leg curls, more of a hamstring curl exercise, but once again I'll show you how to incorporate the hip hinge and the glutes a little bit more into that leg curl. Then we'll be moving on to the kettlebell swing. Very hip dominant, very hip hinge dominant movement pattern exercise. We all know that. Hip swing, kettlebell swings are all in the hips and all in that snap. And then we'll be finishing with our 5th exercise, which will be a barbell bridge. And once again, you don't have to have a barbell for these bridges, but you do need a good amount of weight. This is a strength-based workout. We're going to stay timely. The density is very high, so it's not the heaviest you could possibly lift if we were resting long periods of time and doing lower volume. But the goal is still to move a good amount of weight, to build muscle, to enhance the booty gains, to enhance your posterior chain and your capacity with what is the strongest, most beneficial movement pattern that our human anatomy can perform, which is the hip hinge. So very important. So without further ado, we're going to run through the first round. Like I said, this is a 15 set micro session, so you can do the math. We're going to get 3 rounds through these 5 exercises. The first round, as always, we feel things out. We're going to be working hard. We're going to get our heart rates elevated, but it's food for thought for the second and third rounds. How much we want to increase the intensity, which is most certainly going to happen on the second and third round. So let's go ahead and start with our step ups. Let me make sure that I push the start button. Yup. All right. So I've got my plyo box here set at 20 inches. And like I said, I'll show you how to make these step ups more of a posterior chain emphasis, more of a hip hinge emphasis. So I'm going to go ahead and start on top of the box. I'm trying to hit my head, chop my head off. So what you're going to do is step back extra far, reach for it, and you'll see how much I step back. That helps you load the hamstrings. Also force me to hinge my hips more. And then I'm going to pull myself forward up onto the box. Switch legs. See how far I reach back. See I tilt forward, load the hamstrings in the front leg. See how much I had to hinge my hips. And then I pull myself forward, unhinge, squeeze the glutes. Let's speed it up a little bit. Reach back, tilt forward, thrust, and squeeze. That's 2 on each leg. I'm going to go to 5 on each leg for 10 reps total. Now 5 reps on each leg is not a lot of volume, which tells you second and third round we will definitely be adding some external load. Reach back, feel for the load in the hamstrings and glutes, squeeze it at the top. Think about the hip thrust, and that's 5 on each leg. Now, throughout this micro session, We will be keeping the rest breaks to a minimum, for me personally. So, focusing on your recovery breathing between sets, keeping it to about 30 seconds between exercises. That's going to keep our heart rates elevated, but give us a little bit of an opportunity to set up, get our minds right, let the muscles recover just slightly so that we can move some good weight after that. Alright, we're going to go into our stability ball leg curls. Alright, hopefully you can see me on the ground here. Heels up on the ball. Now, a typical leg curl, you would keep your hips down, focusing just mostly on the hamstrings. What we're going to do is curl the ball in and thrust the hips up. So you'll see that that incorporates more of a hip hinge and a hip extension within our leg curl, turning it into a hybrid leg curl / bridge or hip thrust. Slightly higher volume on this. Anywhere between 12 and 20 reps is good. And right now I'm going to shoot for about 15. Now try to avoid setting your hips on the ground. My glutes are grazing the ground, but I'm not resting my body on the ground. I'll give about 5 more. At the very top, we think about a posterior pelvic tilt. That helps us protect our lower backs and engage the glutes more effectively. You see me adjusting my feet. That is necessary a lot of the time. All right, I'll tell you what, no matter what you do in leg curls, bridges, curl bridges on the stability ball, that really does a great job of targeting the posterior. My hamstrings really lit up doing that. Now with the hip thrust and the posterior pelvic tilt, I can feel my glutes engaging more thanks to my mind-muscle connection. Very good thing to practice on that exercise in particular. A few recovery breaths now. Now if you're taking about 30 seconds between exercises, you might, depending on your breath control and where your heart rate's at, give 5 to 10 recovery breaths, but do make the most out of every breath while I'm blabbing. All right, we're going to go into, actually, I'm going to put I was about to do my Romanian deadlifts. I want to put the kettlebell swings next. I'm doing a wide stance swing. I'm just going to use one kettlebell for this round. Conventional swing, but I've got a pretty wide stance right now. It's like a sumo stance. You could call these sumo swings. Now I'm going wide, to focus more on my hip hinge. See me sitting back with my glutes. We're going to go about 20 reps, and anywhere between 15 to 25 is our zone here. But I'm preparing for the next round when I hold 2 kettlebells in between my legs. So the wide stance, it will be necessary. All right. That was between 15 and 20. I'm going to shut up and focus on the recovery breaths now. It's getting hard to talk and work and recover. Move your hands with me. Expand. Inhale, inflate. One more. All right, I'm going to take both of these 35-pound kettlebells over to my Romanian deadlift station. You see I'm elevated about 4 inches on these mats. This for me is going to help with the range of motion, to increase my range of motion, to increase the recruitment of my hamstrings. Let's keep these Romanian deadlifts pretty conventional. We'll stick between 10 and 12 reps. And you see this is a deficit Romanian deadlift because I am able to descend past the level of my feet since I'm elevated about 4 inches here. Now you don't need to be elevated. You can try it It's an intensity technique, doing a deficit Romanian deadlift. But if it just makes you bend your knees more and more, then you don't need to add the deficit. I'm just barely unlocking my knees. The deficit is not forcing me to squat more. So I'm good to go. Again, 10 to 12 reps. Posterior pelvic tilt, shoulders back. All right. Nicely done. That does not get my heart rate up as much as the swings. So I'm going to stay honest with it. I'm going to mosey right into my bridge station here. Not going to rest quite as long. Now I'm doing barbell bridges for our fifth and final exercise of this first round. But as long as you can load a good amount of weight on your hips, then you don't necessarily have to have a barbell. We're going to keep it between 10 and 15 reps. Again, I'm thinking about the posterior pelvic tilt at the top. My butt is not resting on the ground. I do touch the bumper plates to the ground, but I don't set my body on the ground. I think I'll shoot for about 15 here, 2 more. Feels like 15. Oh yeah. Now, this first round through was a little bit lighter. I'm gonna be honest with it. I'm gonna bump the intensity up on everything. I'm gonna earn my recovery breaths. It's gonna force me to focus a little bit more on my movement pattern, my mind-muscle connection, making good use of every single recovery breath. Now, after you complete the round, it's okay to rest a little bit longer. So, we do want to start a little bit fresh for round 2 or round 3. Think about what weights you're going to use on everything. I'm going to add some more weight on my bridges. I know I can handle more. I'm going to load myself on the step-ups. I'm going to use both kettlebells for the sumo swings. Might even put a weight on my hip for the stability ball curls. Now, if you don't feel like you need this recovery period, I'm going to challenge you to increase the intensity on everything. Likely means you weren't going heavy enough with the intensity, or you could do a few more reps. You could go toward the top of the rep range on each exercise, or do a few extra reps while I'm talking and while I'm performing. All right, so going into our step-ups, I'm going to grab a couple of dumbbells here. A couple of 20-pound dumbbells, 40 more pounds on these, that ought to do the trick. I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to alternate again, doing 5 on each side. Reach back. See my tilt forward. Thrust and squeeze. Reach back. Thrust and squeeze. I'm not going to allow these dumbbells to swing. I'm not going to allow myself to free fall, come splashing down on the ground. One more each side. I'm not going to spring and bounce off of my bottom leg, keeping it strict on the top leg. All right, 5 each side. Feels good. Adding 40 pounds personally makes me feel like I'm forced to do the exercise with better quality. Let's get this out of the way. All right, we're going into our curl bridges. Or just grab whatever. Don't worry about what weights you got. Here's a plate. Doesn't matter if it's a dumbbell, a slam ball. What matters is you're getting to work. 10 pounds. We'll be fine with this. All right, we're gonna curl and bridge. Let's go for 15 reps. Let's hit the top of the rep range. Once again, not setting my butt down on the ground, just grazing the ground. Get up onto your shoulder blades. Big deep breath with every rep. Big glute clench, glute squeeze at the top. Oh yeah, building the burn now. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit for these last 5. Oh, feet are slipping off. Oh yeah, that's a good burn. That's a good burn. All right, let's utilize our recovery breaths. Think about your lungs expanding and inflating with your hands. A couple more. Next up, we'll be going to our sumo swings. Time to bump that load up. All right, I had 1 kettlebell last time. I'm gonna do 2 kettlebells this time. Our zone is 15 to 25 reps. I'm doubling the weight, so we'll see how the performance goes. And I'll cut it when I feel like it's a good set. I'm gonna cut it there. Whew. Might have seemed like a random number. Kind of was, it was 18. That's when I felt my rhythm and power getting a little bit going astray. You'll notice I wasn't talking during that set. Can't talk when I'm swinging 70 pounds. I need to focus on bracing my core, protecting my back, and powering with my hip hinge and hip extension. Whew. All right, scoot these out of the way. Let's get ready for our RDLs. Now, on the first round of Romanian deadlifts, I used those 2 kettlebells, which was 70 pounds. This time I'm going to use the barbell because it's convenient. I'm going from 70 to 135, so that's a good jump for me. Something that I think is a good weight for this round. All right, let's get 10 to 12 reps. Technically, the first rep is a straight leg deadlift because it's starting from the ground. But from here on, we don't set it on the ground. Even if you tap the ground, we're not resting on the ground. It's all about the hip hinge. Shoulders back at the top. Two more, let's get 12. Good set. Now, if I were just doing straight sets of a conventional Romanian deadlift, not within the context of this posterior chain circuit, not bragging, saying I would be going significantly heavier. But you gotta know your context and know how the cumulative effect of all exercises affect each other. I could go heavier on all these if they were standalone straight sets of an exercise, but the density Keeping my heart rate jacked up. And the combination of exercises, fatiguing the same muscles with similar movement patterns, it's a whole different ballgame. So always check your ego. Don't worry about how heavy you can go normally. Worry about what's appropriate given the context. Now, setting up for my bridges. As you can see, I'm adding more weight here. This is not an ego lift for me. 185 pounds in this context is appropriate. And this is our final exercise of the round. I put these last because a hip thrust or a bridge is an appropriate burnout exercise. So don't be afraid to hit failure. Let's get 12 to 15 reps. Reps 10 to 15 were a struggle. On reps 14 to 15, I was near failure. Once again, slightly longer recovery. Anywhere between a minute and 2 minutes between rounds is great, appropriate, helps set you up for success, helps you game plan for the next round. How do you want to adjust things? What do you need to do differently? What went right, what went wrong? Always forecast ahead of time so that you're not wasting time between sets, setting up or deciding. We'll get 5 recovery breaths down here. Breathe with me. One more. Okay. Once again, if you don't feel like you need this recovery, you're either not doing enough reps, so do a few more reps, or you're not going heavy enough. Likely, you're not going heavy enough. This is a strong movement pattern, strongest movement pattern we can do. You can handle higher intensity than you think. I believe in you. Let's make round 3 our best round. Last round, best round. Now I already know I'm going to move up to the 25s here, which means I'm loaded with 50 pounds right now. There we go. Reach for it, exaggerate, thrust, squeeze. Reach, control, swipe, and thrust. Load the hamstrings, thrust, squeeze the glutes. Load the hammies, thrust, squeeze the glutes. Stay straight. Don't spring off your bottom foot. One more each leg. All right. As always, the weighted step up is a formidable core exercise. You have to engage and embrace your core effectively, efficiently, and able to do a strict step up well. Let's continue to breathe while we get down on the ground for our leg curls. Our leg curl hybrid. I'm going to stay with the same weight because I worked up a real good burn, but I'm going to try to focus on squeezing, contracting even harder. Squeeze. Literally every single rep, clench your glutes at the top. Clench, and flex your heels in. Flex, squeeze the hamstrings like you're attempting to give yourself a hamstring, glute, and calf cramp all at the same time. Contract, control, contract, control. And if you do a good job of that, by the time you hit 10 reps, you've accumulated some lactic acid buildup that's already starting to scream at you. I'm gonna get 5 more, but I'm gonna speed them up because I need to get to my 15. Hamstrings feel like they're on fire. Oh. This is a wonderful mind-muscle connection, an example of how the mind-muscle connection and focusing on contracting and controlling pays big dividends, because you could just go through the movement, seesaw, teeter-totter in and out, not get much out of it. But this is a good exercise to really pick on yourself and work up such a burn in your lower posterior that you feel like you're about to cry. That's a good thing. Let's saddle up for our swings. I don't need to go heavier. 70 pounds is enough. Now, could I swing more normally? Yes. But being exercise 3 to 5 in this situation, 70 pounds is enough. All right, let's get, again, between 15 and 25. Last time I got 18. Here we go. Whew. I think I got 20. It's a good set. That's, you could classify that as stamina or power endurance. We all know swings are a power output exercise. Lots of velocity, lots of fast switch, firing hard recruitment, but over and over. That's power endurance combined. Oh. Which can be synonymous with stamina in a sense. Oh. Recovery breaths. Of all the exercises, that one demands the most recovery afterwards. So respect that, because you need to do your Romanian deadlifts well, with good form, good control, good focus. Now, I'm just going to leave this bridge weight on here for my RDLs. It's going to be hard for me to even hang on to it right now. 8 to 12 reps. I don't know if I'll be getting 12 this time. We'll see. See how my grip hangs in. See how my hamstrings hang in. Alright, I actually cut it there at 9. Not because of my grip. I was actually using a hook grip, smashing my thumbs. This bar's not going anywhere unless it yanks your thumb out. But my form, my velocity was really slowing down and falling apart, so 9 was a perfect set. And we've got our final burnout set of bridges. Last set, best set. Breathe with me. keep this intensity the same as last time. I think it was perfect. Really smash these thumbs on that hook grip, but it works. Very effective. All right, here we go. Let's crank them out a little faster this time to really burn it out. I got a few extra in the tank. Get it. Go. I am 17. It was really 15 with a couple of partial reps. But when it's your last set, have at it. Give it what you got. Burn it out. When you get random numbers like that aren't 10, 15, 20, if you get 9 or 13 or 17, it's a good indicator that you're being honest with maxing out your capacity and taking it where you could. And you need more of that. Don't get fixated on the number. Get fixated on what you are capable of, and then adjust the intensities to fit within your rep range. Work backwards. It's a good strategy. So there you have it. A 15 set, 3 round, 5 exercise, posterior chain session, hip hinge session, glute hammy, lower back, booty gain session. Have fun with it and get them gains.